Space Unit, the history lesson. Now in this lesson we're going to learn about early astronomers who really paved the way for today's idea of how the solar system looks, how the universe and galaxies are observed today, and how we just overall look at astronomy. The first person we're going to look at is Aristotle. Now, of course, Aristotle, he was the first to come up with the idea of how the planets and the solar system looked. Then a man by the name of Ptolemy gets involved, and he puts together some mathematical equations and kind of understanding a model of how the planets actually interacted around the Earth. Now this is called a geocentric model. Geo meaning Earth and centric meaning the center. So obviously this is our geocentric model that Ptolemy improved on with Aristotle being the first to come up with the idea. Now of course there are many flaws in this as we go through and take a look. Next comes Nicholas Copernicus, right after Ptolemy. Of course, this is somewhere around 1400 years later. So we have this idea of this geocentric model, this Earth in the center. People have believed this for years, and some of those flaws are seen by some of the calculations that he does. Now, of course, he doesn't share any of the ideas with anybody, so he writes a book about how the geocentric model, as you see here, is not the right way that people should view this. And he moved the sun in the solar, and it really just evened a lot of things out in the solar system model. Now, a man by the name of Galileo Galilei then enters the scene a little bit later. Now he does something that a lot of people attribute him as building the first telescope, but some historians believe that he didn't necessarily build the first telescope, but he was the first to really use the telescope by pointing it into the night sky and to verify and confirm a lot of things that people just didn't believe in, especially Nicholas Copernicus' idea that the sun was in the center. Johannes Kepler is the next astronomer that we see, and he lived during Galileo's time as well. But he was really the first believer of Copernicus. He was the one that followed Copernicus's work very closely, and he did his calculations of math and figured a few things out as well. And he improved on Nicholas Copernicus's idea that the sun was in the center. And at this time the idea is called a heliocentric model, which where helio is means sun, and again the centric is the center. So the heliocentric model is improved by Johannes Kepler by not being perfect circular orbits. He flattens out the circles and turns them into elliptical orbits, or an ellipse. And by doing this, it really showed and made all the calendar and a lot of the things that they were seeing in the night sky of the planets moving and the stars and everything moving. It made it fit into this heliocentric model very well. Then the man by the name of Sir Isaac Newton takes all of this, and he takes Kepler's idea and he uses that to develop the law that we know today as gravity, and explains how things in space remain the way they are in space. And again, Sir Isaac Newton was debated later on with Albert Einstein, as we will get into that discussion later on in cosmology. But Sir Isaac Newton, he, by following all the astronomers before him, was able to come up with that law of gravity, which really did a nice job at the time explaining why the planets and everything stayed in an orbit. The last man that we're going to look at is considered the father of current day cosmology. He is the one, Edwin Hubble is the one that founded galaxies, and from that idea he realized that we were in many galaxies, and our universe consisted of many galaxies. And by him doing calculations and studies on the different galaxies, he noticed that there's a red shift on the wavelength of galaxies that we see, very similar to a shift in the wavelength as a car or a siren passes you, where it gets intense as it gets closer, but as it further away it gets, the wavelengths get longer and more drawn out. And the example is, as a fire truck goes by you, it gets very loud, and the impulses of the sirens get quicker and quicker and quicker until it gets to you, and then as it starts going away from you, the wavelength starts getting even less, so it starts to dwindle away. And Edwin Hubble used telescopes and used calculations to figure out that the galaxies, many of the galaxies, are on this red shift where they are a longer wavelength, which to him at the time opened this door for speculation and understanding of what is the universe and what is it doing, and gives us many different theories on the ending of the universe, as well as where everything all began. So Edwin Hubble, again, he is going to be one that we mention a lot about, especially when we get into the cosmology section of this unit. And of course, we all know that Edwin Hubble, the Hubble telescope that now sits out in the space, is also attributed to Edwin Hubble.